I would like to ask you first of all, now after the augmentation of relations between Turkey and Russia, which role do you see for Turkey in the Eurasian economic integration process now in the future?
It's funny, the last interview I gave on that issue was in April
Yes,
this year,
yes, of course.
6 months ago. Then the relations between Russia and Turkey were at its worst. And we forecasted that eventually they would have to get better. That's what happened. That's what happened. And now the question is, what about this? To which direction would the Russia-Turkish relations develop? There are several obstacles along the way, certainly. First of all, the relative unpredictability of policies both of Russia and Turkey. They change to the worst and they change to the better. Nobody can guarantee they will change to the worst again or not. We just don't know. But objectively, from the economic point of view, I'm an economist. Russia and Turkey are so much interested in each other. It's incredible. I mean, the synergies, the economic synergies are so obvious, so huge. They start with oil and gas, certainly, but then they go to all kinds of trade in goods, agricultural goods, machinery, chemistry, metal goods, anything, you name it, tourism, all kinds of services, construction services, certainly.
Yes, yes.
And then security, of course. These are two countries which heavily depend on each other in terms of security. Big partners, big neighbors. So what kind of future can we envisage for Russia and Turkey? Perhaps Turkey would, in my opinion, would never, ever become a member of the Eurasian Economic Union. It's just impossible for a variety of political and legal reasons. One of them, perhaps less known by the general public, is that the association agreement, the customs union of Turkey and the European Union,
yes, indeed,
explicitly precludes any trade deal, any comprehensive trade deal with another partner. So any comprehensive deal with another partner has to be approved by the European Union. This is a one-sided clause. The Turks don't have a similar right in regards to Europe, but the Europeans have a right to approve any trade deal by Turkey. So, well, as long as this customs union exists, Turkey would have substantial difficulty into entering an almost unsurmountable obstacle for entering the Eurasian Union, and a significant obstacle for entering a free trade agreement with Russia, with the Eurasian Economic Union. Certainly. Here I'm more optimistic. I think these obstacles can be politically overcome, and a comprehensive FTA plus, free trade area plus, can be concluded between Turkey and the Eurasian Economic Union.
You are one of the leading researchers at a research project at the EASA, which is done together with your bank, the Eurasian Development Bank, and the Eurasian Economic Commission. This project researches the possibilities for increased economic cooperation between the European Union and the Eurasian Economic Union. Now, you just said that increased economic relations between Turkey and the Eurasian Economic Union would require dealing with Brussels and getting their, let's say, their permission, kind of. So might it not be better to work more generally on a greater, as you call it, mega deal between the European Union and the Eurasian Economic Union about having a common economic space? What are now your, which prospects do you see for this kind of mega deal? When can it be realized? And what should be done? What should be the first steps?
First of all, let's state very clearly the current relations of Russia and the European Union are in the crisis mode, in a heavy, deep crisis
Yes.
mode. And it would be very naive to think that that can be overcome within 1 or 2 years.
Mhm.
I feel that anybody who is seriously in the business of the EU-Russia rapprochement
Mhm.
should be in for a long run, maybe
Mhm.
10 years, maybe 15,
Mhm.
before the mentioned mega deal can become reality.
Mhm.
Now, why mega deal? First of all, that should be, in the long run, we should aim at a comprehensive agreement between
Mhm.
the two unions, European Union and the Eurasian Economic Union. So this is integration of integrations, which make it even more difficult, by the way.
Yes.
Second, the interests are asymmetric.
Mhm.
The European partners mostly want access to Russian market.
Mhm.
That's the Eurasian market,
Yes.
market of 5 countries, which is 180 million people and about $2 billion GDP, so substantial market. While the Eurasian partners, Russia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, Armenia, and Kyrgyzstan, would mostly want access to European capital
Yes.
and European technologies, transfer of technologies.
Mhm.
That materializes in different approaches to the object of agreement. Regulatory convergence, liberalization of tariffs, trade and services,
Mhm.
liberalization of the movement of people, and so forth. So you have to really to negotiate heavily. You
Mhm.
have to put your chips on your side and another set of chips on another side, and you have to trade them
Mhm.
for a long time. It's complicated, even both technically and
Mhm.
politically. That's why I think even even when the politics would make it feasible to start negotiations,
Mhm.
they would last for a long time.
Yes.
5 to 6 years, our estimate.
Mhm.
But then we still should keep in mind this long-term goal of a mega deal between two unions.
Mhm.
2025,
I see.
2030 perhaps.
You are a well-known proponent of increased economic relations with the European Union, between the Eurasian Economic Union and the European Union. But wouldn't there be this possibility that this increased cooperation would lead to an increasing dependency of the Eurasian economics on the European market and an increased status quo of, as the Eurasian Economic Commission calls it, of a supplier for raw materials only?
It's not as simple. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
European Union is the largest trade partner
Yes.
of both Russia and Kazakhstan and Belarus, but through
Yes,
Russian
yes.
intermediary.
Yes.
So this is the trade partner number one for the totality of the Eurasian Economic Union.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Eurasian partners mostly export raw materials, you're absolutely right, and that's one problem. Another problem is that the Eurasian partners would really like to develop simultaneously trade ties to China,
Mm-hmm.
to other countries of Southeast Asia and South Asia, of course, India, Pakistan, Iran, South Korea, Japan. So the fundamental task for Russia and Kazakhstan is to stay on two legs.
Mhm.
Right now, Eurasian countries stay on one leg. They trade almost exclusively with the European Union, at least in terms of exports.
Yes.
And they would like to trade with
Mhm.
in a more balanced fashion with all partners in Greater Eurasia.
Mhm.
That's, I think, is the fundamental, very long-term goal.
Now, when we look at the Eurasian Economic Union in itself, you as an economist, which directions which policies or which actions you see which should be now in the center of attention of the Eurasian Economic Commission, which first steps should be done to increase integration within the Eurasian Union?
I must tell you that the honeymoon of Eurasian integration is over. It lasted for about 5 years.
Yes.
It was based on the very intense political will by 3 political leaders,
Yes.
by Putin, Nazarbayev, and Lukashenko. But you cannot move forward forever based on the political will of the president. You have to establish verticals and parallels, and horizontal lines and connections of regional integration.
Yes.
You have to establish intensive cooperation between national bodies,
Yes.
between the ministers of economy, ministers of foreign affairs, ministers of finance, custom bodies, border controls, sanitary and phytosanitary control bodies, and so forth and so forth. And it's difficult. After the initial very rapid progress over the last 5, 6, 7 years,
Yes.
it kind of stalls now for this very objective reason. Now, the further progress, which is very needed, especially in the field of the reduction or the unification of non-tariff barriers, the further progress would be more difficult than it used to be. The priority fields, back to your
Yes.
direct question, the priority fields for the further progress would be elimination or unification of non-tariff barriers.
Yes.
Tariff barriers are abolished, but there are about hundreds of non-tariff barriers that makes difficult to trade in goods and services. You have to deal with them one by one. The infamous list of non-tariff barriers of the Eurasian Economic Commission contains about 400 of them, and they have to deal with them one by one. That's one thing. Another priority would be to move forward in constructing a network of free trade areas in the world. The first one has been done with Vietnam.
Yes.
That's the pilot project, so to say. But now a more regular work starts on a number of FTAs with Israel, South Korea, and possibly in the future, I think, with Thailand, Singapore,
India, Iran.
India,
Yes.
Iran, to be sure. Well, and certainly the big lion in the zoo, that's the non-preferential agreement with China, which the
Yes.
Commission has already received the mandate for.
Yes, yes, I know that. So those 2 directions mainly, yes, free trade zones and non-tariff barriers.
And number 3, because psychologically we like number 3,
Yes.
would be the overall efficiency of Eurasian integration institutions, including the Commission and the Court.
I see. Yeah, it's true that they still didn't receive any case yet.
Well, actually, they ruled on 5 cases.
Already, yes. Okay.
Maybe even more. My knowledge could be a bit outdated, but they can provide so much more service for Eurasian integration.
I see. But something I noticed now in your answer, and before that, when you wrote a Valdai paper on Eurasian integration, you didn't mention joint action in the sphere of industries, of having common industrial platforms or joint production lines, something like that between the member states. Is that not a priority to increase the added value of Eurasian products?
It's certainly a priority, but here we have to be very clear on priority of on what level. I'm skeptical of the possibility to really construct value-added chains from the top down. The Commission or the national ministries can try, but they would possibly, very possibly fail into doing it top down. That's the matter of private state-owned businesses, but still business corporations. to go abroad, not because they're ordered to do that,
Mhm.
but because they would profit from that.
I see.
And again, hypothetically, they can profit from that. There are multiple investment opportunities in cross-border. So if Russian companies go into Kazakhstan or to Belarus and vice versa. For example, Kazakhstan provides a more beneficial tax regime
Yes.
for Russian companies.
Mhm.
But for the time being, we don't see any massive flows of new cross-border investments.
So it's all about conditions first. You need to make the right conditions for business to be in itself interested in having those production chains within the EU.
Absolutely, that's the task for state and supranational authorities too.
Okay. When you look at the Russian, especially, and maybe Eurasian in general, sphere of experts, they are very, very supportive of this idea of a one road, one belt initiative, the economic belt of the Silk Road, which is obviously, as we know, a Chinese initiative. Now, I asked you already about which first steps should be done within the Eurasian Economic Union, but if we look more into the future, maybe, can there be any own initiatives from the Russian side, from the Eurasian side, to fill our integration with real matter, with real projects, maybe infrastructure projects, which would be not other nations, other powers' initiatives, but it would be our own initiative, and it would still be very interesting for our partners, maybe in Siberia or in the north or in the Far East. What is your opinion?
All right. On relations with China and on the Silk Road economic belt,
Yes.
we are now finalizing a huge research project on that, so I have some numbers on my mind. But I'd like to begin with a more conceptual thing. Russia is not used to not being the elder brother. Russia, throughout its history for the last 600 years, is always the older brother to somebody. Perhaps for the first time in history, well, at least in the recent history, in the relations with China, Russia is actually not an older brother, but, well, I might want to call it in English, a middle brother.
Something like that,
So
yeah.
not
a junior partner.
Not the really younger brother, but a middle brother, because there are a number of younger brothers in the crowd. Yes? And that's so uncomfortable for Russia, this role. Russia's simply not used to it, but it has to learn. It has to learn, because apart from the military sphere, where Russia is certainly a superpower, in the economy, Russia is 8 times as small as China.
Yes.
Economic-wise, Russia equals the northeastern provinces of China, Shenyang and Dalian together. That would make exactly $2 billion of GDP. Russia intends to be a recipient of foreign direct investments from China, and Russia and Kazakhstan intend to profit from being a transit point in China-Western Europe trade. All that makes Russia a middle partner in this crowd. We have to get used to it. That's on the conceptual basis. On the microeconomic basis, we are now finalizing a report on the relative assessment of various transportation corridors, which would potentially go from Western China to Western Europe, and which would potentially benefit both Kazakhstan and Russia. We come to the conclusion that indeed this can be a very profitable enterprise for all partners involved, but we have to prioritize the corridors, and the 2 corridors to be prioritized are the so-called northern and central Eurasian corridors. The northern one, it's transit, so it starts from the northeast of China and goes through the eastern and western Siberia to the European Russia and then to Western Europe.
Yes.
And the Central Eurasian Corridor enters Kazakhstan
Yes.
in Khorgos and Dastik, in 2 points on the border with China. And then it goes to Russia through 2 various channels. And then again, Russia, Belarus, and Western Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a catch. Usually when people start to talk about Silk Road economic belt, they mean only transit opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So idealistically, there is a huge container train which starts in Urumqi and
Mhm.
goes 10,000 kilometers to Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful picture, doesn't work economically.
Mm-hmm.
You have to add internal connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build efficient container terminals throughout the route. And you have to assemble and disassemble containers along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to this fantastic idea of a container train going 10,000 kilometers, you have shorter routes along the way, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 kilometers from,
Mhm.
from Warsaw to Moscow, from Moscow to Astana, from Astana to Urumqi.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes profitable and very, very interesting.
I see. But still, I want to pinpoint you on my question. So your answer actually is that we shouldn't have our own initiatives, or is there a possibility to make, to create own projects? It doesn't mean that we have to feel again, we have to feel as a older brother, but aren't there any projects we can implement within the Eurasian Economic Union, which would be our own initiatives, economic initiatives, to fill this project with something real?
With an external aspect, you mean?
Maybe.
Not only within the, well, of course, within the union, we are free to do whatever
Yeah.
we will. It can, for example, it includes the establishing a common electric power market
Mhm.
by 2019.
Yes.
The work is ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge thing. That
Mhm.
would be a common electric power market which ceased to exist 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Common market for oil, gas, and oil products
Yes.
by 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We can envisage multiple initiatives in the sphere of real economy,
Mm-hmm.
industrial cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
But I answered your question in a way
Yeah.
as concerns the relations with the outside world.
Yes.
Here, I think conceptually, the most difficult task would be to learn to think of ourselves not as an older brother always,
Mm-hmm.